Okay, so two numbers that their sum is 12 is written like that. Two numbers that have a difference of 4 is written like that. Once you have your two equations written, the rest is simple. You create a matrix. What elements go in this coefficient matrix? Right? Okay, you're just looking right here. 1, 1, 1, and negative 1. You're going to take the inverse of that matrix, and then you multiply it by what we call the constant matrix, these numbers that are not beside a variable. That's 12 and 4. And then you just type it in the calculator just like you see it. Type in this 2 by 2, take the inverse of it, and multiply by this one, and it'll spit out a 2 by 1 matrix with what elements? 8 and 4. Okay? So that means your x value is 8, your y value is 4. You need to check and make sure those make sense. Do those have a sum of 12? Yes. Is their difference 4? Yes. Yes. Okay, number 2. The sum of two numbers is 8. How do I write that? X plus y equals 8. Correct. Those are easy ones. The first number is 2 more than 2 times the second number. Okay. Which number up here did we choose to be first? Okay, so x. Not that it really matters, but since we went with x as the first number in the first statement, we'll go with x as the first number in the second equation. What does the word is mean in math? Equals 2 more. How do you write 2 more? Plus 2, so you're going to write it a little to the side because it's going to come after. You have to know what it's more than, so there's going to be something before it. And then 2 times the second. We know the second number is y if x was the first, and they tell you to do 2 times it. Now, before we're ready to put this in a matrix, what do we have to do? Correct. The x's are lined up, but the y's are not. This y is on the left side of the equal sign like it should be. This y is on the right side. So to get it over here where it goes, it's currently positive 2y, so you subtract it. And so now you have x minus 2y on the left side of the equal sign equals 2. So basically you can ignore all of that now because you've rewritten it as this equation. Now do they line up? Okay, so what elements go in your coefficient matrix? Right, and what are you going to do to that matrix? Find the inverse of it. Right, you're going to multiply it by the matrix with the elements 8 and 2. Okay, so go ahead and type it in if you haven't. Guys, I don't know if I've announced it yet, but your first test is Tuesday, and I'm worried about some of you that aren't paying attention. This is going to be the easiest test you have all year. This is the first test. Yeah, matrices is the first test, and it will be the easiest test you have all year. I'm not sure, but I know this is, like last year there was like a 90 average on this test. So, okay, what are your answers? Okay, so that means x equals 6, y equals 2. Let's see if that makes sense. Do those numbers have a sum of 8? Yeah. Is one of those numbers 2 more than 2 times the second one? Think about it. If you take this second one and do 2 times it, you get 4. If you do 2 more than that, it brings you to 6, the first number. Okay, number 3. In my pocket, I have $2.55 in pennies and quarters. Okay, so we can use P and Q for pennies and quarters. I have twice as many quarters as pennies. How many pennies and quarters do I have? Okay, well, we see that the first statement is all about how much total money is in your pocket. Now, this is a value, like a dollar value. So for that reason, we need to give the value of a penny, which is 0.01, and the value of a quarter, which is 0.25. Okay, you need to look at what your total represents, and that'll kind of let you know if there's anything you need to put with your variables. Does that make sense? Since this is a dollar value, you need to put the value of a penny and the value of a quarter. Now, your next statement says, I have twice as many quarters as pennies. So, if you're holding 10 pennies in your hand, okay, so imagine 10 pennies in your hand, and somebody tells you you have twice as many quarters as you do pennies, what are you going to do to pennies to figure out how many quarters you have? Multiply it by 2. Aren't you just going to double your pennies and be like, oh, I have 20 quarters then? So you take your pennies and multiply them by 2, and that'll let you know how many quarters you have. Told that you have twice as many quarters as pennies, all you have to do to figure out how many quarters you have is double your pennies. Okay, now before I can put this in a matrix, what has to be done? Right, the Q is on the right side of the equal sign, and it should be on the left, over here by the P, correct? So how do you get the Q over there? Subtract it. Correct. So now what's left on the right side of the equation? 0. So don't you basically have a 2P minus Q equals 0? So I'm going to rewrite it so that it lines up good. 2P minus Q equals 0. Now it's ready to be put in a matrix equation. So what are your elements of your coefficient matrix? 0.01, then 0.25, then 2, and then, okay, and then you take the inverse of that matrix and multiply it by, because I had to subtract the Q over so that it would be on the left side of the equal sign. Okay, so now we have 2.55 and 0, and now all you have to do is type it in to get your answer. So go ahead and type it in. 5 and 10?
Oh, that was right.
So that would be 5 pennies and 10 quarters. Okay, is that twice as many quarters as pennies?
Yes.
Okay, let's see if mathematically that adds up to 255. How much money is 10 quarters?
Oh,
250. How much money is 5 pennies? 5 cents. So 250 and 5 cents is 255. Okay, number 4. A collection of nickels and dimes is worth 290. Okay, how can you write an equation to represent that? Is that it?
0.5n plus 1.5.
Right. Since 290 is a dollar amount, you need to put the value of a nickel, which is 5 cents, 0.05, and the value of a dime, which is 10 cents, 0.10. Now, our second statement says there are 19 more nickels than dimes. Any idea how I'm going to write that? There are 19 more nickels than dimes.
19 plus D equals N.
I've heard the right answer. I would write it opposite, though. I would write D plus 19 equals N, which really, it would have been okay had you written 19 plus D, because addition is what we call commutative. You can add in any order and get the same answer. Okay, so 19 plus D would have been fine, or your dimes plus 19 will let you know how many nickels you have. Because think about it. If you're told you have 19 more nickels, if you take your dimes and just add 19, you know how many nickels you now have. Okay, now, before we can put it in a matrix, what has to be done?
subtract the n.
Okay, the n has to go to this side, way over here, so it's currently positive, so I'm going to subtract it over there. And then what else has to be moved? The positive 19 belongs on the right side of the equation, so I'm going to subtract it over there. And so now my new statement is a negative n, a positive d, and then equals a negative 19. So I'm going to erase all of this because I've rearranged it. The n is now negative because it had to switch sides. The 19 is now negative because it had to switch sides. And the d remains positive because it didn't have to go anywhere. Okay, now that everything lines up, we can create our matrix. Okay, so what elements go in this matrix? Okay, and then in the other matrix, 2.90, you really don't have to type in the 0, it wouldn't make a difference. and then negative 19. So go ahead and type that in and see what you get. Okay, what'd you get? 32 and 13. Okay, so that means we have 32 nickels and 13 dimes. Is that 19 more nickels and dimes? Yeah, 13 plus 19 is 32. And then, okay, let's make sure it makes sense. Guys, please close your mouth. Okay, 290. How much money is 32 nickels? 32 times 0.05 is what? 1.6, so $1.60. How much money is 13 dimes? Does that really total up to 290? Yes. Okay, moving on to the next page. Oops, new pages. All right, number 5. Shh. Brooke has $16.30 in dimes and quarters. If she has a total of 88 coins, how many of each coin does she have? Okay, so what should your first equation say?
10 plus 2 equals 1630.
Okay, dimes plus quarters equals 1630. Is that it? But $16.30 is a dollar value.
And you gotta add the values.
0.10 and
0.25.
okay. Then what should our second statement be?
D plus Q equals 88.
Right. You don't have to put anything on those because 88 is not a dollar value. That's how many coins we have, and currently we don't know how many of those are dimes or quarters. Are you talking about this problem, or? I know. It's going to change soon. I'm going to talk to a few coaches, make a few seating changes. I'm talking about everybody being rude while I'm trying to teach. Okay, so go ahead and type that in and see what you get. Okay, what y'all get? 38 and 50. Okay, so let's make sure that makes sense. Is that 88 coins?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 38 is your dimes. How much money is 38 dimes?
$3.50.
Right. How much money is 50 quarters? $12.50. And then does that total up to 1630? Yes. Okay, number 6. I went to the store and bought 7 Twix and 5 Snickers and spent $3.50. Later that day, I went to the store and bought 3 Twix and 5 more Snickers and spent $2.50. How much did I pay for each Twix and each Snickers? Okay, what's your first equation going to look like? What variables do you want to use?
T&S.
Okay, and I'm going to make it like a curved T so it doesn't look like a plus sign. Okay, what do you need to put on T&S for the first statement?
75.
Okay, so when that's the combination you bought, the total was
350.
350. Okay, what's your second equation going to look like?
3T and 5S equals 250.
Right, and so there's your system of equations. You're ready now to put it in a matrix. So 7, 5, 3, and 5. And then take the inverse of it and multiply it by your constant matrix with your totals. Okay, so go ahead and type that in if you haven't.
What's the 25 point and secret secret was 35. With 35.
Oh, it's not my second copies. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, yes, this must have been in the 80s. Okay, so 25 cents for Twix and 35 cents for Snickers. And then if you do the math, you can make sure it really makes sense. Like if Twix are 25 cents, how much would 7 of them be? $1.75. And then if Snickers are 35 cents, how much would 5 of them be? $1.75? And does that total up to $3.50? Okay, so how much would 3 Twix be? 75 cents, and then 5 Snickers we already know is $1.75. Does that really total up to $2.50? Yes. Always check, because it's a good way to know if you've made a mistake. Alright, I have $500 to put into 2 savings accounts, or 2 accounts in the bank. My checking account earns 1% interest, and my savings account earns 3% interest. At the end of the year, I receive an $11 check for my interest earned on both accounts. Find the amount I put in each account. What do you want your variables to be?
CNS.
Either one would work. I went with CNS just because I did, but X and Y is also fine. Okay, now what are your totals?
511.
Okay, the 500 is the total amount of money in your bank. Now, obviously, that 500 is split among your checking and your savings. Do you currently know how it's split? No. So you don't put anything on those variables. $11 is the total what? Interest. Well, do we know anything about interest? Right, 1%, which is 0.01 on checking, and 3%, 0.03 on savings. Now you just put them in a matrix and solve. Okay, how much is in the checking? 200 and 300? Okay, does that really total up to the 500? Okay, how much is 1% of 200? 0.01 times 200. How much is 0.03, so 3% of 300? Does that really total up to the $11 earned in interest? Yes. Okay, number 8, last 2x2 one. Your teacher is giving you a test worth 100 points containing 40 questions. There are 2-point and 4-point questions on the test. How many of each type of question are on the test? What do you want your variables to be? Okay, that's fine for this one because since they're both questions, there's really not 2 different variables you can think of. Okay, what'd you do for the first one? Okay, well let's think about it. The 100 points is what the test is worth, right? So if that's the point, shouldn't your points be up here on this one? They're 2-point and 4-point because 40 is just questions on the test. Well, right now we don't know how many of those are 2 points and 4 points. We just know there's 40 total. But we do know when it comes to point value that you have 2-point questions and 4-point questions. So go ahead and make a matrix, type it in and solve it and see what you get.
And if you flip it upside down and put x plus y equals 40 and then...
It would still come out fine.
Okay.
Somebody just asked a good question. It would be okay had you had x plus y equals 40 and 2x plus 4y equals 100, like had they been reversed. As long as in your matrix you have 2, 4, 100 all in a line and 1, 140 all in a line, you'll get the same answer. Okay? Is that what you got, Kiara? 30 and 10? Okay, so that really is 40 questions. And then if you have 32-point questions, how many points does that make up of the test? And if you have 10 4-point questions, how many points is that? And so that totals up to the 100 points that the test is worth. Okay, this next thing in your packet this next thing is not in your packet. So if you want to write it down somewhere, that's fine, or you can just watch. Alright, Alex, Wes, and Taylor stopped at Cheesy Cheeseburgers after class. Alex bought 2 cheeseburgers, 1 large drink, and 2 orders of fries for $3.95. Wes bought 3 cheeseburgers and 2 large drinks for $4.05, and Taylor bought 1 cheeseburger, 1 large drink, and 1 order of fries for $2.47. What is the price of each cheeseburger, large drink, and order of fries? What do you want your variables to be? Yes. C, D, F would be good. Cheeseburger, drink, fry. And obviously, there are 3 people buying, so I'm going to have 3 equations, one to represent each person. Okay, there are also 3 totals, $3.95, $4.05, and $2.47. Now, when the total was $3.95, what was bought?
You got 2 cheeseburgers, 1 large drink.
Okay, so 2 cheeseburgers, 1 drink, 2 orders of fries. Okay, when the total was $4.05, what was bought?
You got 3 cheeseburgers, 2 fries,
And milk.
Okay, so you have to put 0. The 0 will have to be there in the matrix. Okay, and then when 247 was the total, what were your coefficients?
1 straight across.
1, 1, and 1. Now, the only difference is when you create your matrix, it's not going to be a 2 by 2, it's going to be a, right, so 2, 1, 2. Right, your answer will be a 3 by 1. You take the inverse of it, just like we did with the 2 by 2s, and then you multiply it by the matrix with your totals. So go ahead and start typing it in, and then you'll know the price of each cheeseburger, each drink, and each fry.
Well, it's still cheap.
Yeah, I know. How much was a cheeseburger? 69 cents. How much was a drink?
99.
And how much was a fry? So we all got?
Drink sandwich.
Okay, now I'm going to pass out a worksheet with 3 more that will be your homework. So you need to work on it now and tonight.